All right, fellow Ghanaians, a very good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. It's a Thursday evening, the 30th day of July 2020, and that will bring us to the end of the penultimate stage when it comes to the registration exercise. The Electoral Commission enters the final stage when it comes to the registration of voters for election 2020. Well, we all do know that, but for the Eid celebrations tomorrow, the Electoral Commission had intended to also register some persons tomorrow, but has decided that, well, in order to mark the holidays, reverted to its previous calendar. So as we get to the final stage, tonight we want to do a bit of assessment of all the stages before the final stage. What has been the main issues? From issues of late arrival of equipment, from issues of violence at some polling stations. I'm sure by now you do know that in recent times, particularly at the Asanwase constituency, there's been lots of issues to do with violence. There have also been, violence-related issues in the Ewutu Senya East constituency, Kaswa to be precise, where we know that Member of Parliament for the area, as well as Minister in charge of Special Development Initiatives, Mavis Harcombs, had to fire a warning shot and eventually having 4 persons arrested. So for all of us watching tonight, I want us to do this together. We're having an assessment of the whole exercise. How has it been so far? Have you registered? Well, at the end of the 4th phase, we're told some 11 million Ghanaians had registered, with 39% of them being guaranteed by others who had registered earlier. That's also raised a lot of issues. For many of you, you think that, well, so we're having a voters register that has about, almost a third, more than a third of it being guaranteed by a person, some of whom have actually become contractors. Does that in any way affect the credibility of the exercise? My name is Winston Amwa, and when we return after the break, I'm going to be introducing my guest. We're having a great conversation this evening, and you can also join us. You can just tweet at us at JoyNews on TV on Twitter, so we can have this great conversation. We'll be right back after the break. All right, so welcome back from that short break, and thank you very much for staying. This is Upfront on the JoyNews channel. I am Winston Amwa. So we've been joined this evening by Director of Electoral Services at the Electoral Commission, Dr. Sribo Kwaku. He's joined us on phone, and we also have Evans Nimaku, who's Director of Elections and Research of the governing NPP. Evans, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. And Dr. Sribo Kwaku, good evening also.
Good evening, my brother.
Great. So let me get to you, Dr. Sribo Kwaku. And today would mark the 5th stage. We're getting into the final stage of the registration exercise. From an Electoral Commission point of view, how has the exercise been so far?
Thank you very much. My regard to your listeners and viewers. We will say that just for the initial hiccups, the exercise has been a very successful one, and you will be able to draw your own conclusions. But looking at the figures that we have covered, and for now, we will say that God has been good to us.
I do know that, yes, the final day of this phase is today, so you wouldn't have figures for today. But at the end of the 4th phase, you had over 11 million. How many voters are you expecting to register?
Our projection is between 15 and 16 million. So for now, I don't have the actual figures, but I'm told that we are now around 14 million.
You're now around 14 million?
Yes. And
you have a final phase to go through?
Yes, please.
Tell me how the final phase is going to be, because I know there's a bit of a mop-up. I have also seen some polling centers as part of the final phase. How is the final phase going to be?
Yeah, the final phase involves around 6,700 registration centers or polling stations. And they are also going to work for 6 days per each polling station. So it's a normal phase as we have been doing.
So I mean, I was just looking at some constituencies, for instance, and I see the final stage. There's a part that is written mop-up, and that is the clarification I want to have.
The mop-up the mop-up will come after we are finished with the final phase.
Okay.
So what we have asked our officers to do is to look at their various centers with respect to, at the end of each registration center, how many people were in the queue that they couldn't cover before they moved to the next phase. It is possible that we didn't even work for the first day or first 2 days, but still we were able to cover the numbers that at the end of the fifth or sixth phase, there was nobody to be covered. So the decision as to mop up at your center will depend on whether the people were in the queue at the time of ending the phase or we have been able to cover them. So it will not be like maybe the machine got spared in a day or two. That won't be the factor. The factor will be that at the end of the phase, were there people in the queue? If there were not people in the queue, then it is presumed that we were able to cover everybody. But during the mop-up time, the district offices will be operating. If there are some few people who have just turned 18 or returned from whatever they were, can go to the district office to be registered.
So in effect, during the mop-up phase, the district offices will be open to everybody. It would no longer be between from the 50 above and the security agents that are currently being allowed to register at the district offices.
Yes, that's where we are not opening up the registration center, and you are in go to the district office to register.
But you know, talking about, let's just stay on the bit about, so people who are left in the queue. How would you know, for instance, that, in this place people were left in the queue? How about people who came and realized that, okay, so, I mean, it was getting late and they left? I mean, how come that?
The evidence will be that the people our officers were asked to monitor the queues. So they will know that they couldn't cover even the figures will show. For instance, if maybe out of the 6 days, they were 150, 150, then the last 2 days, they were 80, 50. That tells you that once the capacity was to register 150, and the last day they registered 80, it means that they had already adjusted the figures. So if their capacity is 150 and they were continuing to register 150 to the end of the last day, that should tell you that they couldn't have registered everybody.
Okay. So in some of the registration centers, particularly in the Ashanti region, you had the opposition NDC raising concerns in just areas like Ejiso, and they talk about how even though at the end of registration, the number of persons who had registered when it was reported had increased. The regional director admitted but said that was not going to affect the national database. How?
It wasn't Ejiso, it was such as South and Techima offensive north.
How have you resolved those issues?
No, what happened was that the two district officers were doing cumulative computation. So if the first day they registered 10, and the second they registered 9, instead of 10 and 9, they made it 10, 19. So the third day, they will add the first, second day to the third day. So they were doing cumulative presentation instead of individual day presentation. So the regional director saw it, called them and explained to them, they rectified them, and they called the political parties and explained to them that the figures they have given them were misleading. So the right ones were given, and that's why it became public, because it was dictated by the regional director who asked them to rectify them. And once the figure had been given to the political parties, they were also called to be given the rectified one. So that one wasn't a problem.
Now, that cumulative thing that you talk about, I mean, how come they came by that? Is that how you taught them to compute figures?
No, we are talking of, it's like when you are teaching students. The same question, people will have different interpretations. So I suspect that maybe they were not conversant with the usage of the Excel, and that led to that. But they were ratified, and subsequently, everybody has agreed that the figures have been given. So it was an error on their part to have used the cumulative figure, but it was ratified. That is after the third day.
Now, you might have seen some of the issues that have come up, some of the controversies surrounding certain registration centers. What do you make of these as Director of Electoral Service of the Electoral Commission?
If we can be specific about the controversies you're talking about.
So you look at Asawase, for instance, and you've seen, I'm sure you might have seen the video of some, of an individual engaging in a fracas at the polling center, pulling a gun, and people have complained.
At the beginning of the registration, we had a meeting with the National Election Security Task Force, and their responsibility was to address all security issues. So once it has come, I will wish that we leave it to them. But it is more of a security work, and they will be able to understand it and appreciate what it is.
Yes, but while there is a security work also, it is affecting your exercise that you're organizing. And so you should be concerned and not just be a case of...
I'm for concern. That's why I said we call them. So what we want them to do is to brief us about how they have addressed it. But I'm told that it didn't disrupt the registration. So I believe they will take up the necessary steps that they have to do to address it.
They haven't briefed you up till now? You're expecting them to brief you?
Yes, we have not called a meeting. It happened yesterday, so we have not. I have not been part of any meeting on that, so I wouldn't say that.
Okay. Please hold on a minute for me. I'll get back to you shortly. I just would want to also take preliminary comments from the Director of Elections and Research of the NPP, Evans Nimakun. Evans, thank you once again for joining us. So you've been monitoring the process as Director of Elections of the governing NPP. Has it been so far for you? Well, Evans, I think we can hardly hear you. We can't hear you. Maybe you would have to try and unmute.
Hello.
Yes, I think it's better now. Go ahead. Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, as I was saying, thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me also greet your listeners and viewers across the globe. I think this registration exercise, by and large, I would say has been very successful. I would say that there have been few infractions, but I expect that the security services will take charge of all such infractions and deal with it accordingly. But I would say that from what we have monitored from the field, from phase 1 up to the end of phase 5, which is today, I would say that it's been by and large successful. The initial position by the opposition party, especially the NDC, not to have encouraged their members to participate, I think would have been way ahead of where the figures are now. But I think we'll go into the figures later.
Yes, we'll go into the figures later, but you've talked about the security challenges that we've had, a few of them. We've seen instances, for instance, in the Ewutu-Senya East constituency, where your party member has fired warning shots, where there's an issue being investigated by the police. But these things you talk about, some of them have been major. In Asawase, for instance, there's been lots of chaos here and there. Why are you political parties engaged in these things?
Well, I think that, Mr. Man, when you sometimes sit in Accra, in the comfort of your office, the picture is different when you go to the field. I mean, you wouldn't want to be cheated. And in a situation where you see that people are helpless, you also wouldn't want to be cheated, as I said. So, yes, we are aware that in Ewutu-Senya East, Honorable Howard Kumsen has been very candid to say that he shot a gun and the police are investigating. But my major worry is that some young men from the camp of the NDC have been moving around in registration centers, disturbing the process.
How do you know these young men are from the camp of the NDC?
Yes, I mean
that has not been confirmed by independent investigations.
Madam Howard is a member of parliament and is going to be a candidate for the 2020 elections. And we've been in touch. And as I'm saying, some men on the part of the NDC were disturbing the process in the constituency. And Mr. Amma, let me tell you, in all elections and pre-elections arrangement, Wutu Senya East is always a hotspot, and the security agencies will tell you. So yes, the major issue was that some people, the NDC, Madam Phyllis, had brought in people to come and register.
That has not been confirmed by independent investigation, so it would remain an allegation. Yes. But you've talked about...
So whilst you wouldn't want me to go into the details, what happened was that the woman will not sit to be cheated. She didn't fire any human being. She gave a warning shot. And I'm happy that the security agency is going into it. And I know that at the end of the day, she will be exonerated. We will not sit and be cheated. The NDC, right from the birth of the new registration exercise, has given Ghana a whole lot of hell. Okay. Thankfully, anytime they go to court, they lose. And today, thank God, they've lost again. And I think that the earlier they brace themselves, that Ghanaians are willing to go through an electoral process that is credible and fair, is the way to go.
You talk about nobody wanting to be cheated. Now, I want us to do something. So you've cited the other example. There are those who have also said, in your strongholds, and let's have this candid conversation. As politicians, what does this registration exercise mean to you?
Well, for us, eligible Ghanaians, 18 years and above, who reside within the electoral area must be allowed to register. So in future, they can exercise their franchise. And that's all about it. Situation where people want to abuse the system will face some of these challenges. And as I said earlier, by and large, this registration exercise has been very successful. That notwithstanding, there have been some few infractions. And at this point, I expect that the security agencies will be professional and do the needful for the people of Ghana. But, Mr. Amwa, you, the media, also have a burden to carry. I will put up a statement. Another party also put up a statement. I wish your reporters were there on the field to report what they saw. And then the whole of Ghana will see where the truth lies. And so this situation of hit and run, and then because it's not my stronghold, because it is my stronghold, I'll begin to make noise, it's not the way to go. I think for us as New Patriotic Party, we've been very candid that let's allow eligible Ghanaians to have their names onto the electoral roll so they can be part of the decision making. We've never preached violence anywhere, and we've asked our members to go out there in their numbers to register. That is all we've done. But we will not sit to be cheated. Where we have to report to the police, I don't think we've hesitated in doing so. Our agent in Akan constituency, who was threatened and beaten, and I'm happy your station reported of the incident, said the NDC candidate said, I'll kill you. So it can't be the same as Madam Hawa Kumsen, who shot a warning shot and is being investigated by the police. This is somebody who was physically attacked. And good. I don't think that's the way to go.
I'll get back to you, but let me get to Dr. Sribo Kwaku. Dr. Kwaku, yes, you've talked about some of these incidents, waiting for, please, a security briefing. But ever since the exercise started, have you had any briefing from the security agencies?
Meeting them. So we wonder why we meet and we discuss the issues. And some of them will come to us. So we'll send them the message about that, and they will explain what has happened to us. But like I said, some of these things have been taken up. They are investigating. So I will want them to wait for them to investigate so that whatever they come up with, then we know that is the issue.
Yes, I mean, they would investigate, but it's been more than 30 days of, registration exercise. The times that they have come to you, what specifically have they been telling you?
I wouldn't want to discuss security issues that we have been holding with the security people on site. So, I said that they are investigating. When they come out, they will tell us whatever they want to put across to Kenyans, they will do. It will not be fair for me to be discussing the security briefings that we receiving the police on site.
Now, earlier, and there's a question that some of our viewers are asking. Earlier, we were informed that this phase was going to end on the 31st of July. That's tomorrow.
No. It was going to end today.
Yes.
But we had one initial arrangement was that we built in 2 resting periods. So we said that the second resting period will be on the 31st. So that we start the last phase on the 1st. But later we had wanted to change it and make it start so that we have an evening break. So that tomorrow being 31st will have been the beginning of the last phase. So this phase, phase 5 is ending, and that was today, and that was what was initially agreed.
So when you started the 4th phase, the 5th phase, and there were delays, you talked about making it up. How are you going to make it up to those areas where there were delays?
And I think it was when we started the 3rd phase. It was the 3rd phase that brought about that, because that was when we were moving from the half phase to the full phase. So we had to roll out additional 3,000 plus machines, and that's where we had the challenges with the activation. But we have gone beyond that. So what we are doing is that people were supposed to work for 6 days, but they worked for 5 days. Were they able to cover everybody? We should bear in mind that by our projection, on the highest level, no center was supposed to register more than 850. But because some people didn't wait for them to get to their centers, they moved to the wrong centers. And that is also showing up the numbers in terms of multiple registrations. Now that we have moved to the centers, the people are going there to register. And that is bringing about a rising number of multiple registrations. So if the people who are to register, let's say 800, and they made the first day, some of them could finish with the 800 within even 3 days, because some were getting to 300 a day. So it's not an issue that automatically, because the first day we didn't start on time, there should be a mop-up. The figures will speak to us.
Okay.
So if you realize that drastically the numbers were down the 4th and the 5th and the 6th day, mean that they have captured everybody they were supposed to capture. So they won't be needing for.
So just so we'll be on the same page, these projections that you talk about, what went into calculating them? What went into reaching the projections?
We know we have the figures in our records with respect to the existing registered voters. So we looked at it and split the huge ones into smaller ones. So based on the record, there are existing police stations, and the people who have registered, they have seen 2012 up to date. None of them was more than 850. So that clearly means that, given the view that the system of the figures were bloated, we are not expecting to go far beyond the figures that are already in the register.
Talking about figures being bloated, you talk about currently having about 14 million. That's estimated 14 million. You're projecting up to 16 million.
Yes.
You've talked about bloating. Now, since you started, you've seen numbers of 2 million at every stage of the registration or more. You're going into the final phase. The 2 million, the 14 million plus 2 million gives you 16 million. The mop-up might also add additional numbers. Isn't it likely, in fact obvious, that you're going to exceed your projected total number of registrants?
Let me start by saying that the current register is about 16.8. And And last year when we did the limited registration, we registered about 1.2. So assuming we were to do limited registration this year, and we were to get the same number as last year, it means that the register would have been 18 million.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at the number of the statistics we have taken now, the 18-year people alone, we have gone beyond 1 million. Then there will be people who are above 18, but they also register. So assuming on the lower level, if we were to do limited registration with register 1.2, that means that they would have had 18 million registered. So if the register, we get 17 million, it means that we would have still been able to reduce it by 1 million.
Mm. And if you get 17 million, it could also be that because of the situation we find ourselves in, there are people who have not gone out there to register, and also people who might have died and they don't have their names, expunged from the register. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's voted.
Our argument is that some people who have died since 2012 are those who have voted the register.
But dead men don't vote.
They don't vote, but in your budgeting, you budget for them. When you are going to print ballot papers, if there are 80 million register, you print 80 million plus. So they don't vote, but in your budget, in your calculation, everything, even if you want to compute the voter turnout, the total number will be the denominator, without regards to whether they are alive or dead. So it will not give you the accurate statistics. It has a lot of implications once the register is voted.
I mean, we'll get to the implications briefly, but also the point that, so if you're looking at the numbers, if you're looking at your projection, you exceeded. Ghana's election, I mean, elections all over the world, turnout is never 100%. So no matter the number that you print, you still would have people not showing up, wouldn't you?
By conversion, whenever you are printing ballot papers, you print the number plus at least 5%.
Sure.
You don't draw conclusions that the people will not come, so you will not print the whole number. So if you have a total result of 60 million, then you print the 60 million plus the 5% or 10%. If you have 80 million, you print the 80 million plus the percentage. So clearly, the lower the number, the lower be the budget. And if the credible research should be accurate, being accurate means that it should be so close to the reality. So once you have a lot of dead people in the budget, those who will not vote as we said. So it will go against the voter turnout. And that is why in Ghana, if we take our records, every year when a new register is compiled, the turnout is higher. But as the register lasts, the turnout goes down because of the possibility of the bloating.
And bloating sometimes through, not because people have deliberately registered minors, but bloating also because people might have, passed on, and in some instances.
No, I've been very careful. My bloating is always laid on people who have died, not minors or foreigners. I've not alluded to that. I'm talking of people who have passed on, and that has always been our argument.
Okay, but let's look at this. I mean, you've talked about bloating not as a result of minors and foreigners, but as an electoral commission. You've heard the political parties make these allegations against each other. As an electoral commission, being director of electoral services, do you suspect that sometimes minors get into the voters' register?
Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows what?
That the register will include some names of unqualified names, be them foreigners or underage. But we try to, as much as possible, to reduce it. That's why we have a lot of challenges, and we are now sitting on them. And some people are being disqualified. So once people are being disqualified, then give credence to the fact that some people were not 18 and some were not Ghanaians who try to register. And it's all over the place. If you visit any of the picture of the place, you will go there and see that the place is busy with respect to the DRC meetings.
I am interested in the measures you're putting in place. You've talked about that's how some people are being disqualified. But what specific measures have been put in place to ensure that we're able to get these people and disqualify them, or in some instances, hand them over to the police?
With respect to unqualified applicants, it is the people who know them who can challenge them. And that's why we bring in the challenge process. So if you are living within a community and somebody presents himself or herself to be registered, and you know that the person is underage or is not a Ghanaian, that's why we even add the residence. Because you should register at the place that you are living. So people will know you and testify that you qualify or you don't qualify. So there have been a lot of challenges that are being agitated on. And for your information of your listeners, the committee is made up of the district commander of service representation, the district director of education of his representation, the electoral commission district officer who is the secretary member, then one traditional player, and reps from all the active political parties. So all the active parties are also serving on the committee.
Okay.
And they have been sitting and they have been disqualifying people and also upholding the rotation party.
So far, how many people have been disqualified?
They are sitting, the only one we finish the verification, they will submit the final report to us. But we have been talking to them, and if you can ask your colleague to visit the district offices, and they can observe some of the sittings, and they will know how people are being disqualified and others are being qualified.
Good, but
the law allows them, if you are disqualified, the law allows you to also appeal to the chief registration review officer, who happen to be a high court judge. So those who are disqualified by the review committees can apply to the chief review officer, who is a high court judge, to also agitate on the case.
Now, it's interesting. I mean, you've talked about the fact that we all know that minors sometimes find themselves onto the register. Sometimes foreigners also do. Beyond the citizens or the residents being vigilant, going forward, is there any way that as an electoral commission you think we could actually identify these persons without necessarily saying, because, oh, you come out there and say, and verify or say whether I'm a resident of this area or not?
The best solution is for us to have credible form of identification. Once we have a credible form of identification, then your age, nationality, everything will be captured on that identification. So that will be used as evidence to register. So I believe that maybe after finishing the national identification, some of these challenges may be reduced. Because if you go and register with the national identification and you overbroke your age, then you are rather speaking of your pension in the future. So people will now stop. But they know that for registration, voter ID card, it has nothing to do with their future. It's only about voting. So once we have a credible national identification, that one will be one of the ways of fighting against people lying about their nationalities and their ages. Okay.
Now, there's been concerns about the number of, guarantees or people vouching for others. About 40% of the number of the persons registered so far. What do you make of that? Are you equally concerned or worried about that?
If you take the 2019 limited registration, it was 95%. So we have moved from 95% to less than 40%. It's an achievement.
It's an achievement that you have, about 40% of the registered voters being guaranteed by those who have registered, and that you can't, independently prove whether or not they're aged 18 or whether they are Ghanaians.
It will interest you to know that some guarantees have been arrested and they're being prosecuted for lying. Okay. So if you are guaranteed for somebody you don't know, and it turns out that the person lies, once you arrest the person, you have to be arrested because you connive with the person to enable the person to register.
Okay. Before you go, Dr. Shewa, so I get to Evans Nimako. So the mop-up exercise, when does it start?
We are finishing the registration on the 6th. Then we'll have 1 day rest. Then we have 2 days that we are going to use for the mop-up.
And so we're looking at all things being equal by the 9th of August?
We are thinking of 8th and 9th of August.
8th and 9th of August?
Yes.
Will be the mop-up exercise.
Yeah.
And then we'll be done. All right.
But a lot of the districts are saying that they don't need it because they have been able to cover all those they wanted to.
Well, maybe they might need it because some of us have still not gone to register. So
because the district will still be operating. So if you have not been able to register, the numbers have gone down drastically. Now the queues are down. I'm already expecting that first and second we'll see some semblance of the huge numbers. So subsequently the numbers will go down again, and the numbers will never rise again.
All right. Dr. Siribo Kwaku, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome, my brother.
All right, so Dr. Siribo Kwaku is the Director of Electoral Services of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. We still have Evans Nimako, who's Director of Elections and Research of the NPP. We reached out to the NDC, but they're not able to join us. Their members had a lot of things to do. They said they were a bit busy. So, Evans, let me get back to you. And in advocating the compilation of a new voters register, one of the points you made was the fact that there were foreigners in there and there were minors. Now, you've heard Dr. Siribo Kwaku say that, well, that's something you can't do anything about. Doesn't that in itself defeat the very purpose of advocating the compilation of a new register?
Well, I don't think that the advocacy for the new register only has to do with the presence of minors and foreigners on the electoral roll. Even though that's a major issue that we all need to address as a nation, I mean, it's illegal to have minors and non-Ghanaians to be on the electoral roll, and it's for all stakeholders to ensure that it never happened. So for us, we've asked our agents in all registration centers that as much as possible, where they anticipate that prospective registrants are minors or non-Ghanaians or non-resident within the electoral area, they have every right within the law to challenge. And it will interest you to know that our agent in Cape Coast North challenged the NDC's parliamentary candidates. And when he appeared before the District Review Committee, his voter rights was taken away from him. I'm aware that the gentleman, Kwame Naminta, will want to appear before the Regional Appeals Committee. I know he will fail as well, and the law will take its course.
How do you know he will fail?
Because he lied. The law states that you must be a resident within the electoral area you seek to register. And where you don't have any link, if you've not stayed within the area for a period that the law allows, you are not eligible to register, to be a registered voter in that electoral area. And that's the law. And so once we are aware that the gentleman lied, we applied the CI 91. If you look at the regulation 28, it's clear that where you have given false information to a registration officer and it's been challenged, that challenge will be upheld. So yes, let's
you applied CI 126 to ensure that that person's has his name removed, expunged from the list. Well, if you say somebody is lied, Evans, that's something that will be determined. He's going to appeal.
It says that if you provide false information,
yes,
and the NDC candidate for Cape Coast North provided false information, it was based on that our agent challenged. And as I said, our agents in all registration centers have been given enough skills to know as and when to challenge, and that they are doing for the party, and we are happy with that. That aside, it is for all stakeholders to ensure that minors and non-Ghanaians do not get their name onto an electoral roll.
And when you say all stakeholders, who are those stakeholders you're referring to?
I mean, including you, the media. You've done your man's job so far covering this whole registration process, and I wish that you'll be there to help name and shame, because sometimes the challenge will have to be collaborated by other stakeholders. The law allows that the media will give a coverage of all development in all registration centers. So we get to know. And so a situation where, for instance, if I tell you now, you may say that, yes, you don't have the evidence right there with you and will have challenges. In Nanton constituency, we are aware that minors were being registered and our agents have filed challenges. And we are going to go before the district review committee and we'll make sure that they do not. And the law will take its course. Why is it that, minors will want to, and you see, they are not doing this by their own. They are being facilitated by other interest bodies, and that is not the way to go.
Including including you, the politicians.
The New Patriotic Party do not support that any youth, any minor will want to get his or her name onto the electoral roll, because they are endangering their future. And for us, we have the future interest of the minors at heart. So we tell our agents, don't let anybody who is a minor try to register. Where they do, challenge and go through the district review committee. And if they want to get to the regional appeals, we will be there to discuss it. It is in their own interest. And parents must ensure that their wards are not lured into these arrangements. It will not help their future. So the New Patriotic Party will not, at any point in time, be a party to an arrangement to register minors.
Is that the official arrangement? Is that the official position? Foreigners. Is that the official position or unofficial position?
This is the official position of the New Patriotic Party.
And unofficially, your members could go ahead and do these things. Because officially, you've said one thing, that your members go out and do another thing is also a possibility, isn't it?
No, I think I've been very consistent. I said that as a party, we do not support any arrangement to have any minor have his or her name onto the electoral roll, and our agents will challenge. That is the official position of the New Patriotic Party.
Exactly, and the NDC has also said the same thing. They've also been challenging. And so the question is, where is it coming from? I mean, the two main political parties say, oh, we don't do that, but we've seen it happening.
Well, if you can, show to your viewers that the New Patriotic Party is facilitating minors to register. That's why I'm saying that you, the media, must help to name and shame. And then the general public will get to know where the truth lies. And for us, our agents have been prepared well enough to challenge where they deem that is not within the confines of the law. Every agent of the party has been given copies of the CI 126 and 91 to arm them with what they must do at all centers. So we are very much abreast with what the law says. That's how come our agent was able to challenge the NDC's candidate in Cape North, that he gave false information. Without that, you think you would have been able to do that? No. So, yes, we've advocated for a credible electoral system that will give us an electoral arrangement for credible Ghanaians who are eligible 18 years and above within the electoral area, get their names onto the electoral roll, and have opportunity to participate in the decision-making of who becomes member of parliament and who becomes the president of this country.
Let's look at your monitoring that you've done. Did your monitoring take you to the Volta region?
Yes, our national leadership, headed by the General Secretary, have been assigned through all the regions, and they are visiting all registration centers. As we speak, the national organizer is somewhere in the northern region. General Secretary is in Ahafo. First Vice Chairperson, Madam Rita Talata Sobaye, is in Bono East. The NASA coordinator, Alhaji Futa, only returned from the north because of tomorrow's festivity. And so all national officers of the party have been found now to observe the registration process and make sure that our members turn out in their numbers to register. We also make sure that our members, as they come out, complied with the COVID-19 protocols so that nobody leaves the registration center with any ailment. And so this our leadership have been doing. And so, yes, we've been to Volta region, we've been in Greater Accra here, we've been to Ashanti.
And you're satisfied with the exercise in the Volta region when you were there?
No, I mean, we raised issues. I told you about Akan constituency where some individuals
Akan is in the OT region.
Ghanaians. Yeah, it's in OT region. Yes, I mean, that enclaves, it used to be part of Volta, where our agent was attacked. Francis Kofi was attacked, and I'm happy, as I said, your station gave a coverage of it. It's been reported to the police. And so we expect that the security agencies will help to ensure that sanity prevails in all registration centers, said that eligible Ghanaians will have their names onto the electoral roll.
How about your stronghold, the Ashanti region?
Eastern region is our stronghold. Ashanti region is our stronghold.
I have asked you about Ashanti region.
Yes,
there are
registration is ongoing.
That your members are not coming out to register.
I disagree with you saying that our members are not coming out to register. Our members are registering in their numbers. And from the system we have and what the EC is putting out, we are monitoring the figures. And having done 5 phases in this registration, we are left with the last phase and then a possible mop-up. You'll see how it goes.
And so far, per your own monitoring, how many persons have registered in there?
Oh, we've gone past the 30 million figure. We know that our people are giving us more figures because some of them will have to come from interior registration centers. And we know that by the end of day today, some figures will add up to what we've gotten.
Have you monitored the figures from K2 South?
I mean, K2 South is one of the constituencies in Ghana. The registration has been ongoing, and so we are looking at the figures across the country.
Well, it's one of the constituencies that your party has consistently doubted numbers from that constituency. And so it should be one of those constituencies that you should have an interest in, isn't it?
I think getting to the last phase of the registration process, you take the interest to visit K2 South and observe the registration in the remaining centers that are yet to be done. Our agents are there on the field, and they will report to us all development. We are seeing the figures, and as I said, it's not only from K2 South. We are seeing figures from Zebila. We are seeing figures from Ebuakwa Southman constituency and across the country. So yes, figures are coming up, and we are monitoring what is coming each day.
And my question simply is, as you monitor, I mean, for one of those areas that you think have questionable figures, it should be part of the areas that you keep an eye on. That's why I'm asking whether you've been keeping an eye on K2 South, for instance. Is it a case
We're keeping an eye on all registration centers, including those in K2 South? I think you're getting fancy about this. K2 South used to be one of the leading constituencies in terms of voter population, looking at the 2019 figures. But as we speak, I don't think they have those numbers. Also, the other constituencies which used to have higher numbers, they don't have again. Others that had less numbers are getting more. For instance, if we put the whole of Greater Accra together, a lot of people have registered in Greater Accra. And so, as I said, the party is looking at the figures. When the whole process ends, I mean, a decision will be taken. You will strategize on how to move into the December elections, knowing the figures we want to have. And for the party, we know that the good people of Ghana have seen in the leadership of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia, and knows exactly that the two will be given 4 more to do more for the people of Ghana. In terms of parliamentary, the party's arrangement is that at the close of the elections, you have more than 2/3 majority in parliament. So we're working towards that.
Oh, okay. And so you've put in place measures to ensure that a lot of your members register.
Yeah, that arrangement is, we've encouraged all eligible Ghanaians and especially MPP members to go out in their numbers to register.
How are you encouraging them?
I mean, the New Patriotic Party is run from polling stations up to the national.
So how are you encouraging them?
We know our members in all polling stations, and the discussions have been done, and they know what they must do. They must get their names on the electoral roll, and that is what I urge you all to do. I heard that you have not registered yet, so you need to go with your colleagues who have not, and also motivate other members that it is important that once they have aged within the law and they are of sound mind. I mean, the law is clear. It's not everybody who's supposed to be registered. You must be 18 years and more. You must be a Ghanaian, and you must be of sound mind and live within the electoral area. Then you have every right to register within that electoral area.
Evans Nimako, thank you very much. Evans Nimako is Director of Elections of the NPP. Earlier you heard from Dr. Sribo Kwaku, who is also the Director of Electoral Services of the Electoral Commission. I'm Winston. I'm on behalf of the team. Thank you so much for being part of UPfront today. We'll come your way same time next week. That's on Wednesday. Till then, keep watching the Joy News channel. Up next is Joy News Prime. Have a lovely evening.